Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Couples Talk. As usual, I have to introduce my wonderful husband who is always here to support me on this venture. And I thank you guys for viewing with us again this evening. So, as usual, we always have a topic that we believe is inspiring and comforting to those who are married and maybe those who are not married and are thinking about getting married and need some, extra information from someone, who might know a little bit more than you do or going through a journey. Or, of course, we've been inspired by God to share this information. So, our topic for this evening is an interesting one: values to a lasting relationship or values to a lasting marriage. Now, you hear this topic and you're thinking about what type of values is she talking about? But we're talking about different areas in our marriages that we need to work on and we need to improve daily, weekly, monthly, hourly, because each person goes through a journey with themselves and in their relationship. And sometimes it takes a toll on you. And sometimes you just need a reminder in terms of what areas you might need to work on to improve. You might not even realize those were the areas that you're missing on. So we just want to highlight a few areas with you this evening. There are a lot of them. And you can even research them, but we just want to highlight a few this evening just to encourage you, to remind you that even though you think you're in a slum, there's hope for your relationship.
You said something, and I know it was just in passing, but what I've seen in this journey in this relates to marriage, it's not about what I know and what you know, but as we share our journey and our experience, there is something that we are able to gain from each other as it relates to just going through this journey. There is something that you have to be able to connect to make the best out of marriage, because there's so much marriages that are failing, and those that choose to remain together is not truly experiencing the fullness of marriage, and we could relate to that. We were together for many years, and you could almost coast through marriage and not truly embrace and to be living. I remember watching a movie and said, there are times that you're just existing. You're going day to day. You're working. You're coming home. You go through light conversation. What you did at work, what I did. We eat something. Probably we have sex. We go to bed, and you go through that cycle day after day. And before you know it, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years have passed, and you're no farther or no closer in sharing values, sharing future plans, and you're always on the brink of falling apart. After all that time, it's amazing that there are people that may be together for 10, 20, 30, 50 years and then just separate. How does that happen? And a lot of times it comes back to some simple fundamental things that just don't get old. I can tell you there is probably nothing new under the sun as to why marriages are successful or why they fail. Sometimes it's just getting right back to the basics. And we want to just talk to a few, not a lot here. The first and foremost, two of them, two separate entities, but I think they just hug each other very closely: trust and honesty. As it relates to trust, Charlie, why do you think trust is such an important element of marriage?
Well, when it is you unite with this person, you have to take into consideration now that both of you are placing your life in each other's hands. And if it is you can't trust this individual you're with now, you're going to have a serious problem. Because this is a person now who's supposed to support you in every venture. Be the person you're supposed to run to when you're in trouble, when you're happy. And you have to be able to be vulnerable with this person. And yes, you might have noticed we keep using the word vulnerable. That's bearing your all to this particular person. If you can't do that with them, then you have a problem. And even as we tied in trust, honesty, we realize that you have to be honest with the person. You can't be keeping secrets. You can't be being fake. You have to be able to bear it all. You have to be able to trust this person that when you're being honest with them, and we're not talking about being rude or harsh, we're talking being honest in terms of your happiness, your sadness, your anger, but bearing it in a way that is not offensive to the other person. And you see, if you can't connect on those levels, there's going to be some challenges in the relationship.
Now, I'll just speak as it relates to what happens if trust has been broken. What if there has been a series of dishonesty that have just led to a breaking down of that? A few things here. You need to be patient with each other going through this process, and you're going to have to rebuild that. Understand it's going to take longer for you to get back to a point where you could either earn the person's trust and in the same way trust the person wholeheartedly. But it can be done. But you also have to have a recommitment to be honest, and not just to be honest, you're going to have to show in some intentional way, go beyond to validate to the person that I want to regain your trust. If it was that you're someone that typically comes home late and maybe it might have led to some sort of, then if you're going to be late, think about that. Let persons know you're going to be um, late. If it is that you're previously had certain passwords on your phone, be intentional to share your password with your spouse. If you're taking certain call, don't leave your spouse now to ask, hey, who you're talking to, you tell them, so forth. Especially again, if that breaking in trust came from a matter of infidelity or so forth, you have to now be very intentional to regain that trust. So there's a Bible text that we just want to share as relates to this. It says, Proverbs chapter 31, verse 11 says, the heart of her husband safely trusts her, so he will have no lack of gain. The second point we want to share with you is time and family. Again, two things that just draws very closely together. I'll speak to as it relates to time. There's a statement that says a lot of couples believe that you could always, get back time when we settle down. You know what? I need to work hard right now. We need to work 24/7. And when we get the house, when we finally pay off the loan, we'll make time for each other. We'll take a vacation then because we can't afford it now. So let me continue pushing, do 3, 4, 5 jobs. At the end of the day, after you have in some way, and if you think you get there that you create time, there's always going to be something else. Life have a toll on you, and when there's after this job is something else. And if you look back now and everything you fought for, that person is no longer there to share it with you. By the time you find a reason to settle down, you're so far apart. Who are you really enjoying that with, and why were you doing it in the first place? If it was to spend more time with that person and so forth, it's amazing what you could do if you could set aside half an hour here or so forth for that, your family, your friends, the things that you was important for you. Maybe a particular hobby, a particular book, or something that you thought you just didn't have the time to do. You need to create that time. What about you, Sean, as it relates to family?
Family, planning a family is so important and vital. One of the challenges most persons have is that they don't discuss these things even before marriage and even within marriage. I recently heard a story where this couple, they got married. They both agreed they wanted no children. And after about 5, 6 years, the wife felt an urge and inclination to have children. So she went to the husband, shared this, how she feels, thinking, well, after all these years, if her feelings have changed, his own would too. But he was adamant, we both agreed to this. So he did not make any changes, and she was disappointed. She was left with two choices: either leave him and move on, or stay with him and change or compromise her views. She decided to do the latter, to her detriment, unfortunately, because now she has regrets because she think that maybe she had left, should have had the opportunity to have the child that she always wanted. So the marriage now is in an unhappy state. So this is to highlight the fact that many times we don't discuss these things, even during marriages. Things will change, people change, things happen. Because we have this idea that when I meet him or he meets me, whatever it is we agreed to when we first met is going to remain. The only thing that is constant is change. Change will take place. People will change feelings, things will happen. Something might be a deciding factor might trigger a different emotion. And these are things that we need to constantly discuss, move forward, See, how do we feel every 6 months, every year? Do we have the same feelings? What changes we like to make? And family plan is so important with that in how you relate with your family. And deciding how many children you want to have, those are also important discussions to have. Not just allow it to be haphazard, which cause a lot of anxiety with some persons issues because one person might want 4 children and one only want two. So they have this disgruntled view that I'm not getting the four that I want. And I've actually seen it with a couple. So the husband now abandons the other 2 children because they have five. Because far as he concerned, I told you I only wanted three. The wife wanted more. Therein lies another issue. So these are important discussions to have, things that we need to take seriously and don't take it for granted. And changes will occur. And both husbands and wife need to be open minded to have this discussion as regularly as.
One of the scripture texts here we just wanted to share is in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 33. It says, "Nevertheless, let each one of you in particular so love his own wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respect her husband." Two concepts that we've spoken about in the past, and we'll probably link to this in the description. Finances. It's amazing the amount of marriage conflict that arise out of finances, and it sometimes have to do with the way we have been cultured as it relates to finances. It may be habits that we would have been developed, and most importantly, because we may not have planned, we may not have decided ahead of time how would we deal with finances as a family. What would we set aside? What would we save? What do we want to achieve as a particular goal that we need to work towards? If these things are not discussed, worse yet, if we don't have a conversation or knowing what each other works for, and it is your money and my money, and we somehow, when it's convenient, try to connect on, you pay for this, I pay for this, or it's going to be chaos. So one of the most important things that relates to finance for me is to have a plan. And the words a plan could have different meanings for some. It may be having a budget, it may be having some sort of structure, some discussion that we normally have about how are we going to achieve the goals that we want to achieve, and how are we going to use our finances to achieve that. We did a series on budgeting as well. If you go back to one of our series, you'll see that, but we'll also link to that as well. Anything there on finance for you, Charlene?
It's important to discuss it. We take it for granted. My money is my money, your money is your money. Or as some women say, the man's money is our money, but my money is my money. I don't know where we got that philosophy from, and it seems to hinder a lot of relationships because the man keeps thinking he's been used and abused. Yes, it is. We know that God created a man to provide and protect us. There's some circumstances where we might need extra finances, and of course, some women want to be financially independent as well. There's nothing wrong with that, but we have to understand it's a union, it's a commitment between two persons, and we have to be willing to discuss and share. And as we mentioned, we did 2 videos on finances, on budgeting, which talks about even doing percentage format. So you don't have to feel pressure to say, well, I'm giving 100% and the other person is only giving 50%. You can wait in terms of percentage where it's balanced. So each person gives as much as their salary is, and it still has a balance in motive. So it's important to discuss finance. It's important to take it seriously and know that if you have secrets when it comes to finance, it could hinder your relationship.
All right. And finally, we want to talk about communication. You cannot re-emphasize this enough. If we are not talking and sharing, and I want to go as far as to say, it's not just sharing words. We have to have meaning there. What is really important to us in the marriage? If we're not able to connect that honesty part and being honest about what we really want, what really makes us tick, then you could be annoying each other, you could be nagging each other unknowingly, and you just go around in just a battle, you're in a circle, because we're not spending the time to really get deep in our conversation. We used that word earlier, being vulnerable with each other. It ties into communication. So one of the things it says here is communication between two people could bring them closer together when both parties are transparent enough to share what matters most. Not just what did you do today, what did I do today, and we move on. What really matters to you? What is it that you want in life? What is it that is going to make you feel a sense of joy, accomplishment? Is it that you had a desire to finish your studies and the person didn't seem to be as interested in it, but you kind of kept that inside, but it's bothering you, and you haven't gotten an opportunity to get it off your chest? Communication is important. You might have to seek some assistance to kind of get you to have that conversation because you may not know how to share what you're truly feeling. You get to that point and find a neutral support system or a way of being able to do that. For some person, it might mean you may feel more comfortable with your feelings and giving it to the person in a letter, whatever method it is. You really need to find one that you could allow you to really communicate what really matters to you. What about you, Sean?
When I think about it and we keep talking about communication, it's interesting to know that most persons think love is a motivating factor to keep a relationship together. And when we have been going through this and even going through our marriage, we realize communication is top priority in terms of keeping a marriage together. You see, when there's a breakdown in communication, everything falters. Because how do you trust someone that you can't communicate with, that you don't understand? So communication is so important. And yes, it might be difficult to communicate with someone you haven't been doing with for a while. But as Joshua mentioned, we can get assistance from other persons, from professionals, from even support system to help bridge that gap. That person could come in and mediate to help you find the right words to communicate with the person and help to build that sort of relationship where it becomes easier to communicate with the person. And of course, if it's difficult as well to say the words, you can write it, give it to them, and you can discuss it after. So there are many ways to go forward, and don't think that because you haven't been doing it before, it means that all is lost. It means once you're alive, once you have breath, there is still hope.
Before we get any further, if you're getting value from this content, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Click that notification bell so when we post more videos like this or go live, you will be notified. A text that we want to share with you is Ephesians chapter 4, verses 2 to 3. It says here, with all lowliness and gentleness, with long suffering, bearing with one another in love. And read the last.
Endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace.
All right. So as we look at just recapping very quickly some of the keys or values for a lasting marriage, we wanted to share one: trust and honesty goes hand in hand. As you look to trust and to be honest with each other, it allows you to draw closer together. And if that trust has been broken, remember to be patient with each other, take your time to regain that trust. And as the person that might have been the guilty culprit in terms of causing the breakdown of that trust, you really need to go even further and over and beyond to kind of allow that person to recognize that you're truly committed to regaining that trust. Time and family.
Time and family. Make time for each other. Time cannot be regained. Time cannot be regained. I will never forget this story about this couple that we met at a hotel. And they were so excited. They had this 1 week vacation, all inclusive. They didn't even get to sightsee the island because they had no extra funds. And you know what they told me? That was their first vacation or outing in 20 years. They sacrificed everything for their children, for their house, and then decide to wait 20 years before they can have a vacation. And the wife said she didn't realize how much she missed having this moment with her husband until that moment. And she hoped that they could have more regular engagements together because the last 20 years, even though, yes, they accomplished in material stuff, she really felt that she lost something else because there wasn't an opportunity to bond with her husband. So remember that all the material things you have in the world will not compensate for the time lost with your spouse. So spend time with each other. And in terms of family, discuss it. Make time for your family. Discuss what it is you want to do and plan accordingly. There's always a way to compromise. So don't ever think that there's hindrance, that nothing can be done. There's always ways to fix that problem.
Finance, the one thing here is have a plan. Sit with each other, have a goal. I always believe there should be a goal that pulls you forward, that allows you to make the sacrifices as to why we're not going to spend on certain trivial things, because you have a bigger goal and something that you're planning towards. You should only have a long-term goal. You should have a long-term, a medium-term, and a short-term goal. So you could have quick wins and see the value of your savings. And even, as Charlie said, don't wait 20 years to have that mega vacation. Have a little staycation. Do something that's probably small right within your town. You could just have someone to babysit the kids. Go spend a night out and just have some fun. Do a nice tour or something like that. Don't wait until the big things to take advantage of the finances that you've given.
And lastly, communication. Communicate with the spouse, be vulnerable with each other, understanding that this is a motivating factor in keeping the bond in the relationship. So work towards it. Even if you are not there, you can get there. As I said before, once there's life, there is hope.
All right. Thank you for joining us today. Again, if you're getting value from these, remember to like, share the content with someone that might see a need to kind of get some reflection as it relates to their marriage. Like and share, subscribe to the channel, and definitely click that notification bell. So when we post more videos like this, you will be notified. If you want to see more content in relates to financing, there is a video that we would have done on budgeting, and we will link to that as well. See you in the next one.
Bye.